Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 4 of the Askem Studios Wedding Podcast. My name is Todd, and this is
Kelly.
So today we wanted to talk to you guys about bringing out the uniqueness of your day. I had a different title, and we just talked about it, and it's already slipped my mind on what the title is called. So that's what we're going to roll with. So
You said bringing out the uniqueness of your day?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
I don't know. But anyways, so, it's been 2 weeks. Kelly got her secret wish. We did not do the podcast last week. Kelly was in Tennessee gallivanting around at Dollywood and not a care in the world.
That is not even true. I was not at Dollywood. I was there for like 30 minutes and that's it.
So that will be a different story for a different day about your 30-minute, speed trip through Dollywood. But now Kelly was on a chaperone trip for our daughter Katie for her student band trip. So, and then, we had we're in the middle of the month. We've been quite busy with weddings. So, we're trying to keep up with everything, but at the same time, allow for some normalcy as well. So,
well, yeah, because not only that, but it's like the end of the school year too. So everybody's got stuff going on.
Yeah. So, but to stay on topic here and not talk just about us, we wanted to talk about why it's important to bring out the uniqueness of your personalities in your day. So, Kelly, what I wanted to start with was, why do you think it's important to have your personalities, especially when you're talking to your vendors? Why is it important for the couples to have their personalities come out?
Well, so I think that your wedding should represent who you are. I know when I look back at our wedding probably reflected more who my mom was because my mom is basically the one that planned it. So I think when we talk about those things, it's always great to have a planner. And I think great planners, are asking you about you and kind of getting to know you and things like that. It's good for couples to remember that this is a day that you want to look back on and remember, how it was for you and, you as a couple. So, and that can mean so many different things. When you look back on our wedding day, what do you remember?
I remember getting yelled at for not for looking petrified at the aisle. So
what? I did not yell at you.
No, after the fact. I didn't mean in the aisle. Todd, why are you looking like that? It wasn't like that. But I remember for years I never lived this down. I was you didn't cry.
You were sweating profusely.
Well, yes, I was.
You look so scared.
Well, there might not have been an AC unit running that day. Let's just it was in the middle of summer in Pennsylvania.
It was you were so making stuff up now.
I know. So
there probably wasn't any AC running though, because it was in November. So it was cold out. There was probably heat.
Yes, I remember. And then I got flogged on my wedding night. I remember that as well. But no.
You were so going to edit that out.
No, I'm going to leave this in just because it's bringing out my personality in this podcast. So, no, but to answer your question, what do I remember? I do remember a lot of the planning was already done ahead of time. We didn't have to make too many decisions.
And I think a big reason that happened was because you and I, one, we had never been married before,
right? But
also we had never really. I know me personally, I had never really been to many weddings. I think I'd been to maybe 3 my entire life, so I didn't even know what all was supposed to be in a wedding.
Right.
There was so much that I had no clue.
Well, I think our older selves, if we could go back and tell our younger selves, and I think in retrospect of that comment right there, I think that's why it's important to be having this discussion with your vendors, because every vendor brings a unique ability to bring some insight. When we talked the other week to Stacy, and and she talked about how the day had flipped the orientation of the couples so that the family and friends from one side could see who the, I mean, not that they're not, I mean, you see signs up everywhere, like we're a blended family, you know, we don't come in separate, we're all joined together. But I mean, ultimately, if you're coming in support of the couple, but mainly if you have a better acquaintance with the one or the other individual, and I think that the vendors do bring a very unique perspective, and they can kind of grow upon your personality or your uniqueness, your creativity, and I think that just helps across the board. Knowing that now, like if I were talking to us then, I would have said maybe let's bring in some more aspects of who we were, rather than kind of have things be. And it's not a knock against, like, for us. No.
I
don't want it to sound like that, but I mean, because we didn't know any better, and we're just
just like, I mean, when we booked our photographer, like they said, they had another wedding booked that morning, but they're like, we could be there in the evening, and I was like, okay, great, that works. And they're like, but we won't be able to get there till such and such time. I was like, okay, that's fine. And so they didn't have like any like getting ready. They didn't have any pictures of like, my mom helping with me with my dress. But of course, I didn't know that was a thing.
Right.
So probably if the photographers had said, hey, this is something that you're not going to have, then I would have been like, oh, okay. And we may have looked at something. We may have looked at a different avenue. But I had no idea that was like something that I might want.
Well, especially looking back, because we don't have a video. We tell our couples all that.
Nice plug.
No, but I'm being serious though. Like we tell our couples that all the time. Like when we are going through the consultation process, like here's some insights, because these are things we tell them all the time. Like, we do these things because these are things that we would want in our own video if we had one 17 years ago.
Right. Like I would have liked to see my mom's face, like when I came down the aisle. Like I have no idea what she looked like when we came down the aisle. Like there was no photo of that.
Well, you can't trust me because I was petrified. So so I can't.
You probably weren't even looking at my mom. What are you talking about? You were barely looking at me, I felt like. And I do remember my sister saying, because my sister actually walked me down the aisle because my dad's not in my life. But, I remember Chantel saying to me, like, are you sure? Because we can leave right now. Like, she was totally willing to like scoop me out.
Right. Well, that would have been, it wouldn't have been recorded because we didn't have photos of it, and we wouldn't have a video, so nobody would have known that happened. So I guess with the initial consults that we've had with our brides and grooms, what are some of the unique ways and ideas that you first heard about that they may have brought up to us that we thought were unique just in the weddings that we've done?
Yeah, so I think like for like blended families, like some of the kind of unique things that we've seen is, we've had brides or grooms, kind of speak directly to the children, kind of making that commitment, during the ceremony to the children, so that they know, hey, you're part of this, like, we're a family. So I've seen that's kind of, I feel like that's unique to, individuals and things like that. Then just like the unity candles, like, there's sand that's been done, but like including the kids in that as well to really signify that we're making this a family. It's not just, the husband and the wife, but it's everybody. So I think that's been a little bit unique. We've seen like reveals for, children, that kind of thing, so just for like blended families, those are a couple examples of individual things. And then, but like, we've also seen some kind of interesting, just like even not blended families, but just interesting, like unity things in general. So it was like, what are some of your ones that you can think back on? Well,
for me, I mean, it's kind of a mix, but I mean, I think just to go off of that, like the blended family with the sand ceremony, I think the first, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 weddings that we did, like we had a good run of those back to back. But I remember like it was early when we started, like the one with Jessica, and so she had that in her ceremony, and I thought that was a pretty cool idea. And then, of course, we had seen it a couple times since then. But I can think, it's more.
They also included, I think it's a little girl, right, Jessica? And they have a little girl or a little boy.
They have. I don't want to misquote.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. But I know that their kids were part of like the Candids too. Yeah. So like when.
Yeah. Oh yes. Yeah. Yeah.
They did like because after your ceremony you do like your family photos and then you do Candids, which is typically just the bride and the groom. But they actually included the kids in the Candids as well, which I thought was kind of cool.
It was both. It was their daughter and their son. So
okay.
So now that you bring it up, I remember that part from the editing process. But yeah, no, I mean that was that, and actually that's probably the only time we've ever had that.
Yeah,
with
so that
the
was
Candids.
unique for itself.
So that was definitely unique by itself. But they were, I mean, there were a lot of things we were learning on the fly then, that we wouldn't necessarily ask over time, and so I think that for us now, like some of the unique things that we've seen has helped us in the process of trying to relay that like to the couples. So one of the things we ask in specifics is there anything unique about your ceremony? Is there anything unique about your reception? And I think that you can normally tell when you're doing a call with a couple or an individual if it's only the bride. You can normally tell pretty quick if your personalities are meshing. And I think that having those kinds of candid conversations do make a difference, because anybody can put together a cookie cutter wedding video, or you could have a cookie cutter wedding day, not knowing like really to explore the other avenues. Some of the things that have stood out to me just to answer your question, we've had some pretty unique intros. Erin is a great example. It's a bride that we had that came in with the steam engine. We've talked about her before on here. She had the steam engine. She had the bagpipes. She had a whole melee of stuff going on. And I don't mean that insultingly. It was just, there was a lot, and it really helped celebrate who they were, because I think that's the key there. Like each one of those things represented a part of who, like their heritage or whatnot. So I think, if you want to do all those things, but then I also think there's nothing wrong with just, go. And what a lot of our couples say is, oh, we're boring. Well, It's not boring, because if that represents who you are, then there's nothing boring about it. You're what makes it personal. Even down to like your choice of songs, like that you're dancing to and things like that. Like I know the one wedding we were at, like they did like, they were just doing like spin the bottle kind of thing, and whoever the bottle landed on, was going to go into the center and kind of like be the highlight dancer or whatever. Right. Which was, that was different. I hadn't seen that before. Yeah. But it definitely puts people on the spot. And we had our trainee Brent with us that day. And Brent was breaking it down for him. He didn't skip a beat. He went right into that dance. And I think that's what's fun for us as vendors, because we have a very unique ability, and we've been graciously invited into lives of people that we don't necessarily know, and so I think that being able for us to feel comfortable as well, because we always want to make the couple feel comfortable, right, but at the same time, like if we don't feel comfortable, I think that shows up in the end product, just in specifics to the filming, because that's obviously what we do. But I think that I really do think it's important to kind of have that back and forth to get to know the vendors, and not to go back to episode 1, but that was really what we highlighted there. And I think that's important. So going into the actual day, what impact has knowing that there has been the consults that we've had, that we've discussed the uniqueness of their day, what impact has that made, and what did that look like into your head going into the day? So I think for me, like knowing a little bit about the family dynamics, it kind of just allows me to maybe like pay more attention to maybe a certain family member, so that like while the focus may be complete, like they may be doing like a first dance, and so the focus may be everybody's focused on the bride and the groom during the first dance. But knowing that, like, maybe the mom and dad, it's, I think we have a couple that's coming up, like it's their anniversary or something like close to it. So I may like even look back at them, see what's going on with them or whatever. Or if there's, a close,
sister or brother or something like that. So if we know more about the family or friends dynamic, I think it allows us to maybe, capture a moment for them, observing the day, that I may not necessarily think if I don't know about the family dynamic kind of thing.
Yeah. And I mean, in the topic of like those first dances, those are things that I definitely look for. We have grown together. Like you have more had your head on a swivel when it comes to that family dynamic, and I've noticed that you'll point out, or we have our nod system where we'll nod like one way or nod the other for the other person to look over there. But like you've brought that up to my attention, like when we're doing like if it's the father-daughter dance, to look over at the mom, or if it's the mother-son dance. One of the things that I like to do is I like to get the perspective from the bride's point of view of her watching. So and it's always nice. I mean, but we've had some dances where the family has come out. So I mean, like their children have come out and joined them in that first dance. So that's definitely. I mean, obviously, we're talking a lot about blended family weddings. I mean, with us having a family of the size that we do, I think that maybe we're a little more sensitive to that. But it doesn't pigeonhole us into being only into that one style.
Right.
But so whenever you've been able to see like the final products that we've given to some of the more unique ones. So we've had we've had the ones that have had the Chinese lanterns at the send off. We've had ones that have had like the ribbon wands. Just knowing all these different aspects of weddings that we've done, like whenever you see that after the fact, like how is that? Like this wedding we did this past weekend, we hiked a mountain. Which I'm surprised we were even able to film because, we were already winded halfway through the thing.
Right.
But there were a lot of unique, attributes to that wedding. So whenever we got to the base of this, what is it, like a half-mile hike is what we had to do?
I don't know. It felt like 3 miles. So.
Well, we had already talked to the couple ahead of time, and they were coming in from Mississippi. And so they like to do a lot of hiking. They wanted to get them married at the top of this mountain. Ding, ding. This is a shameless plug. But if you look for Kayla and Gray's wedding highlight, you'll see the final product. But
the teaser, not the final product.
Yeah, well, for some who listen to this, the final product may already be out. So, but what I'm getting at is we had a game plan going in.
Yes, that did not happen.
That game plan went out the window real quick.
Yeah.
Whenever we got winded halfway up the.
Well, that's
not true.
It was just because, time.
Yeah, time
and going into the day of there was like a plan in place and what we thought was going to happen.
And the weather was a factor, and so everything got pushed back a little bit, which wasn't the end of the world. Because we were there anyways. I mean, we were. But it as a result of it happening when it did, we were able to capture this amazing occurrence of just like God just showing who He was, or showing who He is. With the amazing like double rainbow, and this fog came in, and it was just. I mean, it was truly just a time to step back and just see. What God can do and the glory that is Him. And I think that represented, Kayla and Gray more than anything. Right.
And just, the strong faith that they have. And
it was definitely a Mount Sinai moment. So, minus the bull in the thicket.
Yeah. So. But it just, and those are the things that kind of happen. Like, sometimes, the things that you don't plan for are the things that represent you the most.
Well, that's something I've been thinking about a lot lately, and this still relates to what we're talking about. But I think about there are times like we are tight on time when we get there, or maybe we feel a little rushed. And I've seen where the day has really just opened up a perfect example. And we weren't necessarily rushed, but we were thrown a curveball when we got there for Casey's wedding.
Yeah.
At the time, her late father was in the ICU. And so when we got there, we were not aware that he was not going to be there that day. So we were under the impression that they were going to have the memorial photo. That's another unique way to highlight some things for your loved ones if they're unable to attend, to have a photo on their seat. But that was the impression of what we thought that day was going to look like. And then I think it was like an hour before the ceremony. Yep. We were told like he's here, and Casey was unaware. And so I think that this is probably an example of like rolling with it, but like the importance of that, of capturing that's forever grained in my head, because like we love what we do to begin with, and we love capturing the unique characteristics of the day. But just like those are the things I was thinking about lately. Was like even in what may seem like chaos at times, like just because of the way things are rolling, like there's always and at the end of the day, there's always a turnaround. Like, wow. Like I always leave every wedding with this impression like, wow. Like, I'm grateful that we were honored and blessed enough to be a part of that. And so that's, I know that kind of went off the trail a little bit, but just the blessings that we've had to communicate with our couples and being able to be on the receiving end of watching their day unfold. I think that older me talking to younger me, I think that maybe he would have instructed himself not to be so petrified looking and take in the moment more, because there are a lot of things that really transpired that I don't even think about, or I don't remember now.
Right.
And so like, I think that getting comfortable within the quality of, okay, this is our day. It doesn't have to be a certain way, and enjoying the moment, because that's a new moment you're never going to get again.
Right.
So
the other thing that I was thinking of is one of the things that one of the things I do remember that I do think back to is like I remember like our rehearsal dinner, which was like very like low key or whatever, but it was nice that we were able to just kind of have like that time to just relax before the day of. And so I don't know if a lot of people, like I heard, we've had some couples that are like, yeah, we're not really doing much for the rehearsal dinner, but I would say that that's probably something to definitely like not necessarily cross off. And it doesn't even have to be anything like super fancy, but I think just that night before or whatever, to be able to have just some like low key moments with like your closest friends and family. I think for me, like I remember that, like I just remember like having I felt like a time to like just breathe and say, hey, it's gonna be, okay.
Well, there's a lot of anxiety that goes into the day leading up to it.
For sure. I mean, you're pledging your life to someone,
and then the day flies by so quick. And before you know it, you're standing at the altar petrified, shoving a ring on someone's finger, and you're like, no. I'm kidding. I mean, it's great to have those moments. So, I mean, even with another unique thing, the private dinner during the dinner. Stacy brought it up, but we've had a wedding that's had that. Yeah. So like those are some maybe. And
there's nothing. I think that's the other thing too. That like there's nothing wrong with couples saying, hey, you know what? I really want to have like these family I really want to have family photos. I really want to have candids and things like that for sure. Like that's important to us. But I really want to be able to just have some time with just us. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, I think we more and more as we've gone on, I've seen more and more couples just say, hey, I just want like 10 or 15 minutes of like just us with no cameras, no wedding coordinator, just like time for us just to reflect on what's going on for us. Mm-hmm. And I think that's so important. That can happen in so many different ways. Like you can, do that, before the ceremony, like during a first look, or, even during a first touch. Like if you decide you don't want to see each other, but you want to have a moment, just the two of you, like, and there's nothing wrong with that. You can say, hey, this is going to be my time. Mm-hmm. And because because brides are always like, oh my gosh, we're running out of time, we're short. Right. So there's a bug flying all around. But one of the things that I'm always saying, to the bride is like, this is your day. Like we're on your timetable. Right. And I think that's just so important. I mean, obviously you want to be respectful of the people that are coming and respect their time as well. But ultimately it's about two people that day. Yeah. And that's what needs to be focused on.
Yeah, and as we're getting towards the end of this episode, one of the things I did want to ask was, what direction would you give in the moment to the planners or the other vendors, etc., from the couple's perspective? And I think you kind of covered that a little bit there. And you're like, hey, like, obviously we respect your time. We want to have this or that moment just for us. So I think that kind of covered that part of it. So do you think, though, like, heck, we've done, last year we've done over 100 plus weddings within the last year, within the last calendar year.
Right.
Would you say that you've seen more and more of, we've had a couple weddings that were just, okay, because a lot of times we'll get the comments, okay, we want you to show up. We want you to capture this, capture that. And it seems like pretty run of the mill in their mind.
Right.
But what advice would you give to couples in lieu of that? Or
like one of the questions we ask, like, is there anything that you really want us to focus on? Like, I know I ask that question a lot, and they're always just like, nope, just everything. Like, just kind of just get everything, right. Which is what we obviously we try and do. But I think, when you're sitting down and you're thinking about, like, what memories do I want to take away? Is it that you really want to remember, everything that you were a part of, or is there things that you also want to, like, see, that you may not have been able to see? Like, most of our couples aren't able to attend cocktail hour, so they don't really know what's going on there. So, like, do you want us to spend a good amount of time kind of, getting everybody that's chit-chatting, or, is that something that's, of value to you? Do you want a lot of dancing? Like, we have a lot, especially our younger couples. They're like, we want it to be a party.
Right.
Like, we want to see everybody having a good time and,
right.
And things like that. So,
but then with that said, 17-year-old them may look back on that and be like, well, we wish we would have focused a little more. So I think that's why, we'd like to ask these things, because we like to give a good, healthy mix across the board. That way that, say you're like 17, 35, 45 years later, you're looking back on your video, and the things that are important to you in the moment of the day of are still important to you then later in life. And I think that walking that line and being able to properly capture that is definitely our goal. So
yeah. Well, and I think the other thing that I would probably, like, other advice I would, like, give to myself is, like the devil's in the details. Like, you always hear that saying, and I think that's true. Like, because there's probably, like, there's so many things that, like, I know we picked out our wedding song, which, like, I basically picked it out, and you're like, yeah, whatever. But
which is probably like most of the guys,
But I think that and, like, our food was, very, like, homey and things like that. And I don't think I would change, like, what we serve for food, because I think that definitely did represent us kind of, like, in that way. But I don't know. I think I might have done, like, maybe more flowers, or I don't know, maybe not. I feel like we missed so much, like, detail, right. Like, just things that, like, now I'm like, oh, that's so cute. I really like that, right. And that kind of thing.
Well, we are winding down episode 4 of the Askem Studios Wedding Podcast. And Kelly, what closing remarks do you have? We're going into another busy weekend this weekend. We have a wedding in South Carolina, and also we have 2 going on in Virginia. So what closing remarks or what takeaways have you taken away from our consultations this week that we've done?
So I think, just we always just encourage our couples to, try and bring out their personalities into their wedding days, because that's ultimately what you're going to remember. You're going to remember, what the other, like, I remember mostly, like, what you were doing and, like, your responses to things, more so than I do mine. So I think it's just important that you guys have that conversation to say, hey, what do you really value? Even if your groom's a little bit more reluctant to be like, I don't care, you ultimately you're marrying them, what they like. And, So, there's nothing wrong with throwing in a surprise here or there, or whatever that you think that they may enjoy. But, definitely sit down and talk about like what's important to you and what you want to look back to remember on that day.
Okay. That sounds like a good way to exit the day here. So, once again, we are so appreciative of all of the people that have reached out, and all of our couples in particular that have reached out and commented on how much they love this aspect. We're very grateful to have the opportunity to have this as an avenue for prospective couples and or our current couples to get to know us better, because we don't necessarily have the same leg up on us whenever the photographers have their engagement shoots and we are showing up the day of. So
yes, but we talked about like possible avenues to
I know
to help.
that was just that was a horrible joke that only you and I are going to laugh at. So but no, so I mean, we definitely are. We're very grateful to have this platform, and once again, I think that like my takeaway heading out of this show today is that I'm continue to be humbled and honored to be trusted with the value of what those days are that we're entrusted to capture, and regardless of the couple, regardless of the whatever background they have. Like just seeing that love and that unity across the board, it's so great. Anyways, once again, thank you for allowing us to come into your lives yet again for episode 4. This has been the Askem Studios Wedding Podcast, and we are going to end this show. Say bye, Kelly.
Bye, Kelly.